To order, please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, may I have roll call, please?
Jennifer Eden. Here. Al Poole.
Here.
David Walker.
Here.
Soren Peterson.
Here.
Mike Cunningham.
Here.
Chuck Schultz is absent.
I need to make a couple of changes here to the agenda. I'd like to make item number 11 the Ronald's tree quote and add number 12, and that will be closed session.
Oh, okay.
So if we have any other changes, if not, I'll take a motion.
So moved. Support.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the consent agenda. Regular board meeting minutes for December 4th, 2018, the treasurer's report, and the clerk's warrants and bills.
So moved.
Support.
Been motioned and supported to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next are communications. We have three items. The first item is the Planning Commission approved meeting minutes from October 4th, 2018. The second item is the Planning Commission meeting synopsis from December 11th, 2018. And item number 3, Laurel Springs Subdivision Road Improvement Schedule.
So moved.
Been motioned and supported to receive communications and place them on file. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Next is public remarks. If anybody would like to make any comments, please rise, state your name and address, and make your comments. All right, we have no public remarks. We'll move on to unfinished business. We have none. New business, item number 1 is Ledgewood Ravine Review. Last time we were here, we had a conditional approval with our engineer to review the site plan. Phil and Kevin have done that. They had a few issues that arose. We met with Mr. Edwards and his engineer today, and I think that we got to the bottom of most of them, Phil, but I think there was two that we, or one that we still have to, get a conditional approval on, and that was the road. Could you explain a little bit about the road to the township board so we understand?
Yeah, if you recall, when you're looking at the plans, there's a curve on the road about halfway down that's shown as a 50-foot radius. The minimum for a 25-mile-an-hour curve, according to Livingston County Road Commission standards and AASHTO standards, is 230 foot for a 25-mile-an-hour design speed. So obviously we don't meet that minimum out there. They do allow for variation of that criteria for low-speed, low-volume streets, which this certainly is one of. And so when we met with them earlier today, they talked about some mitigating measures like putting up advisory speed limit signs for the curve ahead signs, things like that. And they can also, within the easement that they have, because they don't own property on either side of that section of road, within the easement that they have, they could widen that curve. They think they could get it to 100 feet. So a little bigger than it is now. So it's really up to the township if they want to allow that deviation from the standards there. It's in your ordinance that it does allow you to do that if you so choose. Sure.
And then the other issue that was the velocity of the water, the stormwater discharge into the lake. What did you get to on that?
Yeah, the last pipe on the run before it outlets to the lake, the velocity is really high. It's up near 10 or a little over 10 feet per second. We typically like to see it around 5 whenever we can. The problem with velocity that high is when you get high flows, it starts to erode the area around it. And they've got a lot of grade out there, so I'm not sure they can take the velocity and get it down to 5 or less just because they have so much grade out there. But they can take mitigating measures at the outlet end section. There's certain engineering practices that you can do when you develop that end section to slow the water down, to force it to slow down before the outlet. They can put some more riprap down there. They can change the size and the style of riprap and add more. And they also talked about pulling that outlet back further from the lake and putting what we call a plunge pool, which is basically just a deep pool of water that allows sediment to go out. It'll also help slow down the water, and then putting in a swale for the rest of the way down to the lake or a ditch and armoring that so that it doesn't erode. So they've got some things there that they could do to mitigate it. I don't think that would be one where I would recommend not approving the site plan. That's something they can get before they go out to construction. They can fix that on the plans and build it correctly when they get out there in the field.
Right, and I think the other things that we had on there were addressed, and there were amendments to the site plan, I think, which they agreed to do.
There was one other issue. They agreed to add some language to the road maintenance agreement. One of the concerns with the gravel road is
That's right.
when people grade gravel roads, and you've all driven on county gravel roads, so you've seen this 100 times. They put the blade on the outside edge and they scrape all the material into the middle, and then they grade it out flat. Well, over time, that leaves a curve along the edge of the road that can vary in height and can grow pretty quickly depending on how they grade it. And the problem with this is one of the ways they're helping mitigate the sediment down into the lake is they've got all these little sediment traps along the edge of the road, along the road ditches, which will work just fine. There's something that has to be maintained over time, and they'll have to be cleaned after construction and all that, but they will work. The problem is once that overburden develops along the road edge, the water can't get into that ditch line, and then it follows the road, and it'll follow it all the way down to the intersection, assuming that that's all graded that way until it can find a way out. So even if it doesn't make it to the intersection and it dumps at the bottom of the hill right at the ditch, those sediment traps are going to fill up prematurely and be a constant maintenance problem. So we asked the owner to be conscious of it. There's nothing, it's one of those things with a gravel road you just kind of accept and live with, but to be conscious of it because sediment is an issue for the lake. So whenever they're grading the road, just be conscious of it and try to make sure that over time, if they need to add material or they need to regrade it so they don't have that overburden along the edge and the water can get off, that way everything will function as designed. You know, I'm sure it'll work fine on day one. It's 10 years from now that could be an issue, and gravel roads they're always eroding, so it's just an issue to deal with.
Just want to get back to a point of order here. I'll let the record show that Trustee Schultz arrived at 7:07 p.m. So, yeah, we talked about these things, and I think that that we could go ahead with the site plan approval pending our engineers signing off on the site plan changes and the build-out requirements. The only thing is, unless anybody has any objection to the road, part of that too is in part that there was some easement that had to be required for that road to go there, and that's part of the reason why it was designed that way. They're going to actually double the curve going from 50 to 100 and lower the speed limit signs to what, I think 15 miles an hour is what we agreed upon.
So, yeah, somewhere in there.
To compensate for that.
Okay, because there wasn't, I was going to ask, because there's no recommendation
Sure.
in your report, so 15 miles an hour or?
Well, there was,
Yeah.
but there wasn't on the speed limit. But
Okay.
that's just one way of, addressing the issue.
Okay.
I also spoke with legal counsel, on private roads. This is the first time we've done one of these in many years. Do we have liability if we deviate from road commissioner or state highway commission standards? The only time we assume any liability on something like that is if it was a public road.
Our road, yeah.
So I think we're
Yeah, and just so you guys know, from my perspective, I always defer to the standards and recommend the meeting of the standards simply because of a liability issue. I mean,
No, you're fine.
if something does happen, whether the township's protected or not, first person they always point at is the guy that approved it, so.
Right.
Well, 15 mile an hour seems pretty reasonable for a short private road like that anyway.
We're looking
so.
at 6
It does
houses
if
on
they
that
abide
road.
by it,
Yeah, well,
because that curve also has a slope to it.
Yeah.
Which is an issue.
And we can put the rules out there, we just can't make people
Yeah.
abide by them. You know, and you're looking at, 6 houses on a subdivision on a one-way street, so. If everybody plays nice and obeys the rules, we shouldn't have a problem, right? So, I think that, recommendation would be suitable in this, instance, unless anybody's opposed to it, with, the engineer signing off on the changes in the site plan.
You are signing off on them?
Yeah, they've got to make a few changes. Most of the stuff we have doesn't materially change the site. The one I really am interested in seeing is the pulling back or the armoring of that outlet, however they choose to do that, to make that more substantial. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in our letter. It wasn't on the plans. We've since seen it since we reviewed our the initial review and produced the letter. So I'm pretty comfortable, except for those 3 items. If you guys are okay with them, then yeah.
What were the items that were not on the final drawing that we were questioning? What that was?
There was some sewer stuff that was actually addressed in a report. You spoke to the engineer regarding the pump capacities and pressure, and they're gonna actually come up with something for that. It wasn't on there because it's a little difficult, because each lot is at a different elevation, so you can't just say that you have to put 10 pounds or 10 PSI on this one, when this one may require 5. If you put 10 on all of them, you're gonna run into problems.
It was good to hear when we talked to the design engineer today. It was good to hear that, because there's, even in the documentation, there's not a lot of information on that pump system. The fact that there's a lot of grade out here and he's aware of it and will design around it is good, because a lot of, there are people out there that will just say, "Oh, throw this pump in there," and it's like, well, forgot to take into account that's not flat. It actually goes uphill. So to hear him say that was very good. I think he's got his bases covered.
My question would be, if we approve those plans as is, and then there's an issue, and those are not stipulated on that plan, does the fault come back to the board?
Well, if we don't get an updated site plan, I guess it would be as your as-built plan, right? Would you be looking for?
Some of it they have to put on the updated site plan, especially that outlet thing.
Right.
That's really the one key issue. The other one is just a couple sentences in the maintenance agreement in terms of the overburden, so that's not a big deal. But I just want to make sure that outlet is stable and good, so we're not eroding
Right.
it into the lake. So
And the road part of it, they're gonna show that on the map?
yeah, they'll show that on the plan too.
So Phil will let us know if there's something, then we just pull the site plan and land use permit and stop it. That's
Okay.
until it's addressed. Does somebody want to make a motion on that?
So moved.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the Ledgewood Ravine Review Project with our engineer signing off on the proposed changes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Next is the Yashin Land Division application. As you know, they had a cemetery that was approved, and one of the recommendations from the Planning Commission is that they do a land division for that parcel. This is nothing more than them fulfilling that obligation. This has been looked at a couple of times, so I think.
it was in
It's-
pretty good shape when we did our work before, so,
Right, so.
yeah, I would make a recommendation that we, approve the Yasin LLC land division.
Been motioned and supported to approve the Yasin Land Division application. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Next is Resolution 181202, which is reimbursement for the Laurel Springs Road Improvement Project. This is nothing more than a resolution that allows us to be reimbursed for any expenses on a private road, which is required by law. We can't spend our money on...
It's not a private road. This one's a public
Oh, yeah,
road.
this is a public road, sorry. But anyway, we're doing a road project out there, and this is a resolution for us to recover the costs associated with that project.
So resolved. Support.
It's been resolved and supported to approve Resolution 181202, reimbursement for Laurel Springs Road Improvement Project. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Al Poole,
Yes.
Chuck Schultz,
Yes.
David Walker,
Yes.
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Moving on to item number 4, this is the Resolution 181203 to proceed with the Laurel Springs Road Improvement Project and direct the preparation of plans and cost estimates.
So resolved.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to approve Resolution 181203 to proceed with the Laurel Springs Road Improvement Project and direct the preparation of plans and cost estimates. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
Al Poole,
Yes.
Chuck Schultz,
Yes.
David Walker,
Yes.
and I say yes.
That passes. Next is item number 5, Resolution 181204. This is to approve the Laurel Springs Road Improvement Project schedule for the first hearing and direct the issuance of statutory notices.
So resolved.
Support.
It's been resolved and supported to approve Resolution 181204. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Al Poole,
Yes.
Chuck Schultz, David Walker,
Yes.
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Item number 7 is our sewer O&M rates for 2019.
Means 6, right?
You want to do that?
Yep.
Thank you.
You'll see the note, the letter from the Livingston County Department of Public Works. 2019 rates are up to $50 per month for connection, $16 per month per grinder, and down to 4.28 per 1,000 gallons, excuse me.
Okay. Per 1,000.
Per 1,000, yes. So my proposed rate increase for grinder is 3.53%, and it goes up to $227. For gravity, it's going up 3.63% at $213.10. Businesses are also going up 5.19%. And that's per their usage. They all have meters.
Okay. So moved.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the 2019 sewer rates. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. So we have one opposed.
Opposed. Who was opposed?
Me.
You? Okay.
Item number 7, revisions to the sewer use and rate ordinance number 43. We've had an ordinance for quite some time that has been very difficult to read. We had no point of reference. There were a couple of things in there that we closed some loops on. We had a 200-foot rule. So if you lived in the sewer district and you either received a letter or lived within 200 feet of the sewer, you had to connect. So we changed that to say that if the sewer pipe is adjacent to your property, regardless of how far your house back is, you connect. Because we had people that would tear their house down, they had a letter to connect, build 201 feet, and by law, we couldn't make them connect. So we kind of closed that little loophole, and there were a couple other things in there, but basically we cleaned it up, so.
So, but for this point forward, if there's any new builds or connections anywhere, they have to connect. But the people that are existing, are they, say, built a house last year and they were 201 feet off?
They would have had to receive a letter from the township.
So they're good unless they have a
Prior
fire or
to.
something. If they have to
Right,
rebuild, then
Unless there's a
they'll,
rebuild or
Right.
have to do
Right.
whatever, or,
yep,
okay, but they're not gonna be quote-unquote forced to connect
Right.
if they're already existing.
right.
Right.
There's no language in there that would impose this retroactively, I guess is the way to ask that.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure, perfect. Yeah.
Get the right term.
So if there's any questions or concerns, otherwise we can take a motion.
So moved.
It's a
Support.
resolution.
I will resolve then, rather than move.
You want to support
Bless you.
that
Sure.
resolve? Chuck?
I will support it, yes.
Okay. So it's been resolved and supported to approve the sewer use and rate ordinance number 43. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Chuck Schultz,
Yes.
David Walker,
Yes.
Al Poole,
Yes.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Next is item number 8. There's been some changes in the laws, and then we had a couple other loopholes in this ordinance as well. We basically had, it's no longer around, but we had a medical marijuana ordinance or site that popped up literally in more of a residential area than FR. Was causing problems. They finally left. So we had enacted a moratorium while we looked at some of these things to correct them. Well, in the meantime, the appellate court of the state of Michigan said that we can't regulate this. Well, there's a state Supreme Court challenge and lawsuit to it. So we're going to go ahead and do this in case they do say that the appellate court was in error. So we do have an ordinance in place, and we don't have any loopholes.
Right.
So this is still depending on legislation, but if the appellate court decision is overturned by the state Supreme Court, we're in good shape. And these were the things that we had asked them to do. We talked about this in our joint meeting with the planning commission, so it's nothing new to anybody.
Are you waiting for legislation, or are you waiting for a resolution from the court?
We're waiting for an opinion from the state Supreme Court, whether
Okay.
they're going to,
I thought you said legislatively, so that, okay.
yeah,
Okay, so you're waiting for resolution from the court then?
correct.
Okay.
This applies to all the new stuff that just went down in the votes.
This is the
This,
medical.
No.
this is the medical
Medical.
aspect. We
This
have
is medical.
What we did is, remember, we did we opted out of recreational, so we figured out what everything means. So,
This is strictly limited to medical marijuana?
Right.
yes. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
It's a resolution.
A resolution, I'm sorry.
So resolved.
Support.
It's been resolved and supported to revise zoning ordinance section 21.55 medical marijuana uses. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
Al Poole,
Yes.
Chuck Schultz,
Yes.
David Walker,
Yes.
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Okay, new business number 9. We're getting to that time of year where it's time to start talking about budgeting. What I wanted to ask the board, if they had anything that we needed to plan for, anything that we needed to do. I've jotted down a couple of things that we've discussed over the past year. I'll go ahead and go through those, and if we have anything else, let me know. One of the things that we need to do is we need to replace the air conditioning unit on the side. It got eaten up by salt and everything else. It's an older unit. It's the oldest air conditioning unit that we have. The AC unit replace is about $3,100, so we'll need to budget for that. The other thing is the Denton Hill road repair, part of getting the gravel road, or the gravel pit shut down. The repair cost from White Lake Road north up Denton Hill Road to the county line or the city of Fenton is a $900,000 project. The road commission says that they will not be able to match half of that project. We're gonna have to do it in 2 years. So we would have to budget $225,000 to do the first half of it this year, and a little bit less than that probably next year, or about the same amount. So.
So they'll match the split and not the full?
They'll match the split, and they'll do half of it this year, and then half of it next year. I think they'll probably start at White Lake, go north, and then do the second half after, the following year.
So
So
they pretty much have to rebuild the road, or?
there's some spots there that
Pretty
need,
bad.
it's bad. The sub base is gone, so they're gonna have to go in and, build that up with either some textile fabric and some stone, or just some compacted stone to rebuild that base. And then they wanted to expand the shoulder, so we have at least, 2 foot or 2 foot of shoulder on each side. So as water runs off, it's not getting under the road, it's actually pushing off. It'll make that road hold up a lot better, so that's kind of where we're at. So, unless anybody's objecting to the thing that we've been saying, I'll go ahead and budget for that. Gravel roads.
I know I'm whistling in the dark, but we have no recourse against that. That's okay. Strike that. Doesn't matter. I'm not even going to finish this.
I know exactly where you're going with it, and you
No,
know,
go ahead.
I've
I'm not even
heard it
gonna
from the
finish the
residents,
sentence.
but you're right.
Okay.
Gravel roads, we're looking at, starting over on Linden Road now with doing some ditching and stuff. I'm thinking that somewhere around, $35,000-$40,000. I'm waiting to hear back from Steve Wasilic from the Road Commission.
We've got those all identified, right? The ones that were,
Yeah,
targeting.
well, the plan for a long time has been, we were gonna do Heartland Road, and then we're gonna go to Linden Road, and
South of Center?
we're gonna
Or
start,
north of
we're gonna
Holden.
start south of Center, right where they repaved, and we're gonna see if we can make, depending on how much it's gonna cost, go to Center, and then hopefully next year go all the way up to Bennett Lake Road. Part of that road's been improved north.
how much are you budgeting for that?
I'm probably thinking 35, 40,000. That might flex a little bit depending on how much they're willing to do
Yeah.
and how far we're gonna go this year.
Okay.
So, but that's kind of the idea. We're gonna have to budget a little bit more for chloride, because this year we have the perimeter roads. The shared roads that we have on the perimeter of the township.
Sorry.
On the even number years, there are, or the odd number years, there are ours, the even numbers are the other communities. Deerfield and Heartland and Oakland County, so.
How much?
We usually budget about an extra 15, 20,000 for that.
Okay.
And then the other thing is the wrought iron and the steps on the old town hall out here are gone. So what we were looking at is doing some sort of pressure treated lumber underneath, and then the top part being the Trex. So all we have to do is wash it. We don't have to stain it, and we don't have to worry about the concrete. It'll last long. That will allow us to do a handicap switchback with a large deck on the front there. Then we'll get that old switchback demoed and taken out, and then just some steps out of the back. And I think that will meet our ADA compliance, and you definitely make it work. I think next week the new heater goes in out there, so we've done everything to it. It'll be functional again. The electricity's fixed, the heat's fixed in it, the
How
steps
much?
will be fixed. I'm thinking probably $20,000.
Okay.
We've got concrete that needs to be demoed, and that ramp needs to go.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that.
Trex isn't cheap, but it's good.
Right, well, it'll last longer than cedar,
Well, in cedar, you have,
products,
it's,
and you don't have to stain it.
It's the maintenance.
yeah, in 10 years, you'll spend more money sanding and staining that than,
Hey, you're preaching to the choir about people who have to stain cedar. take a drive by my house, so.
Yep. So I'm thinking probably 20,000 there. Those are the things off the top of the head that have come to mind for budgeting next year. I don't think we, have anything else on.
I have one.
What was that?
I'm considering purchasing new laptops for elections.
That's right.
I got a quote from IT Right to get 8 of them would be around $6,500, but I think we can get them a whole lot cheaper than that, because we don't need them to be, top of the line. They're used a few times a year, and, but the ones we have are getting old, the connectors.
Does the election department actually have a requirement for what they need it is for computers? Okay.
Yeah.
How much do you think it's gonna be?
65.
I wouldn't think any more than 5,000.
Okay.
Probably not even
Some of those
that
don't even
much.
have the right operating systems on, do they?
No, some of them are still Windows 7. Well, most of them are Windows 7. I can't use
There's no
the
support for that anymore.
BitLocker, which is what the state recommends, these computers. I just can't use it on them, so I really think we need to move up. And then I want to get dual electronic poll book in all 4 of the precincts instead of just 2.
Okay.
Criteria for encryption and things like that, I assumed as much, so, okay. So even the discounted models of that meet those criteria?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, we still can, think about things. We're not going to be done with budget for another month or so, so
Okay.
if anything else comes up that we need to,
Fund?
what's that?
One of the projects out there, would that be considered out of the building fund for improvements or for whatever else we're thinking of for the future?
Yeah, we would allocate that money for building, site and building. So, all right, we'll move on to item number 10. Our planning chair has done a lot of additional work outside of being the planning chair, helping us rewrite ordinance, and he actually has a lot of tasks that he had volunteered or was assigned to do. And he had asked if he was going to get compensated for his additional tasks, so he kind of put together this little letter here. And he says he's roughly got about 80 hours of work involved in this. So, I don't know. I think we need to set a new standard for this after this, but there's no denying he did a great body of work. Probably a lot less than what an outside consultant would charge us.
We have hours, what's the dollar bogey for this?
He said he would leave it up to us.
What we think is reasonable. Going forward, we're going to set a policy and we're going to set a rate, and then we're going to require that any
approved.
additional work outside of their meetings
Right,
has to be pre-approved.
You gotta stay inside the guardrails then.
Exactly.
Okay.
But this is going back to 2017, and, I don't know that I want to set a rate to pay him, but I do think that he deserves some compensation, so we just wanted to have discussion to see, what do you guys feel would be reasonable for 80 hours, roughly 80 hours?
So do we know, based upon what he's paid now, what that generates on an hourly basis currently to?
He's paid $125 a meeting, and the
Okay.
meetings are roughly
4
3
hours.
hours.
4 hours.
3 to 4 hours, so,
Some of that's self-inflicted, though.
well,
Yeah.
No, I'm just telling you, I know.
I'm not
I
looking
mean, I've sat
to-
there, some of them are kind of self-inflicted, so I'm just saying, okay. So you're asking us to guess?
Our meetings. sake of argument, call it 3.
Well, if we establish what he gets paid per meeting and he keeps extending the hours out, then that would shrink down the hourly number.
Right.
So he's kind of screwing himself at this point, so. I'm just saying.
You said it.
Okay.
So 30 an hour.
Okay.
Let the record
Probably,
be
that's
known.
probably not a good scale to use, let's put it that way.
And that probably kind of covers the time he puts in out of the meeting too, so.
Yes,
So it's
that's,
really more than,
that's.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to figure, frankly, you're asking us to guess, and I'm trying to figure out some way to guesstimate how do you back
Well, we
into a
asked him what he
number.
thought it was worth, and he said it was up to us.
Well, what would it be, the planner that would have done all this work? We hired a planner.
Planner, legal.
Legal planner.
Me, Mike,
Well, he was very involved with our previous ordinance.
Right.
So
Mike and I kind of worked with him.
we worked a lot with him,
we,
but
we sat down and told him what needed to be changed. We had meetings and he implemented it, but we discussed as a team what we wanted changed. So he did
Just
the
never talked
implementation
about
of it.
compensating
Compensation
him
for it,
for
yeah.
his time that he was spending on his own.
Right.
got a number?
It was not, I mean, I have a number, I can,
What's your number?
In the past,
Throw a number out there.
500.
500 bucks?
I was.
what does any of the other, is there is there anything in place, like, say, if you do above and beyond outside of what there's nothing there?
That's the problem they're faced with, is there's nothing there that, when you
Nor
go
was
outside,
it
once you go
discussed
outside the
beforehand.
guardrails,
Right.
then there's
See, the-
nothing to.
Or it could have been set up as another committee where they would have, you would have.
There's actually a
Another
provision
meeting
for elected
fee.
officials if they take on a different roles. It's in the MTA points and authorities that the township board can assign them, and at that time, they assign them a rate for the duties to be performed. But we've never had somebody on a commission in this situation, so.
Yeah. I'm fine with $500, I mean,
Yeah, it's.
High,
it's-
low?
in the void of not having anything else to judge based upon
You,
that. so-
you probably know more
This is over the course of
about
2
how much
years,
time he
right?
may have spent on it.
About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Not even quite, because I think he started it when I came on
Right.
board in August of 17.
Okay.
That's
It's
when we
kind of
started it.
backwards.
It is, it is.
Yeah,
We
it
don't
should
have
have
to
been.
pay him
it
anything
should have
if
been
we don't want
approved.
to. It's
No, I mean,
just,
he did
you
the
know,
work, I mean, the work was
exactly.
done, and we certainly needed it done, so I don't have a problem with that, so. So moved at $500. Let's move on.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to pay our planning chair $500 for the additional duties performed. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Now, having said that, we are going to create,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
so that everybody stays in their swim lanes next time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, me too.
As you know, we have a tree company that we contract with, and that's Ronald's. In our last census, we received right-of-way money because we're over 10,000 residents, so we started receiving right-of-way money from the state. Historically, we've been using that right-of-way money to trim dead trees in the right-of-way or trees that have a high potential for falling into the roadway. And that's been a program that we've been doing now for, I want to say 8 years. And it has saved us a lot of fire runs, a lot of grief. Or actually, fire runs, we're getting charged fire runs every time the fire department would get called to go out and cut a tree. And they would take 2 cuts and throw it on the side of the road. And we got paid the fire run rate, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a run. We started cutting these trees down, and those calls went down, and it saved a lot of public safety money. So we've continued to do it. So we've identified trees this year. Roan Road, was one of them. We had some dead ones up on White Lake again that we wanted to address, and we also have some over on Partial Road, on the west side of the road. Some oaks over there, it's got some big dead limbs that need to be trimmed out. So he's prepared his estimate here. For $2,500 a day for 3 days of work.
5 days a week.
2 on Roan.
Yeah, he's got 5 days work.
5 days.
Yeah,
At
5 days work, and it's
$2,500 a day.
it's $12,500 total. We did not cut any trees from our right-of-way money, so this is more than, I mean, we have more money in that fund
In that
still.
fund to do it, yeah.
I think we'll still have $6,000, and we get about $8,000 a year. So we still have any trees that pop up that need to be cut this year before we receive our funds, we'll still be able to address those. So if anybody has any.
Cuts them down, cleans them all up.
Yeah, he cuts them, he leaves the wood cuts them down into, 5-6 foot pieces and leaves them there for the residents, because a lot of people want their wood.
Right.
And if not, somebody will come by and pick them up and burn them. And then he takes all the brush and chips it, and all those small stuff he'll chip, anything that's, 2 inches, 3 inches smaller, he'll just chip it all and clean up the road, and away they go.
So moved.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the Ronald's Tree Service quote for $12,500. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
You might mention to him that Tyrone is the township, not the, spelled like the actor.
I know. I noticed. He doesn't have the E.
He's spelled like the actor, so.
No. I'm not going to get too hypocritical.
That's
The man
okay.
cuts trees
I
and
got
does a
it. Yeah,
really
it's
good
okay.
job
I'm
of
fine
it.
with Tyrone Township, not Tyrone Power.
I'm going to ask the board, we do need to go into closed session here, but does anybody have any public remarks before we do that? Want to give somebody a last chance, because it could be a little bit. Sure.
The approval for the essence limit, not give them permission off 10 acres?
No, that doesn't change anything that was previously approved. We just asked that that parcel that the cemetery was on
Be
be
separate.
separated.
Right.
But it's still at 1.3 acres.
Right.
Correct. Correct. Anyone else? All right. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to suspend a regular board meeting. Actually, it's a resolution. So a resolution to suspend our regular board meeting and go into closed session.
So resolved.
Support.
Been motion and resolved to suspend our regular meeting and go into closed session. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Al Poole,
Yes.
Chuck Schultz,
Yes.
David Walker,
Yes.
Mike Cunningham,
Yes.
Jennifer Eden,
Yes.
Soren Peterson,
Yes.
and I say yes.
I've got a friend of mine that's pretty close to the Trump administration, so we got invited to the White House Christmas party. So this is him and his daughter at the White
You're
House
free to
Christmas
wait
party.
around if you'd like, but we're not conducting any more business after this, so that's why we gave you an opportunity to speak.
He
So,
always sends me
all right, so we'll meet in the back in 5 minutes.
A White House Christmas ornament.